Welcome to Borrowed Time. I'm Janine Lang, startup coach, entrepreneur, and author. Now, in this podcast series, startups are learning how to take months, if not years, off of their startup journey, knowing that we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. I'm interviewing successful business owners and asking them to share what is one of the biggest mistakes that they've made, especially in those early days? What did it cost them? And most powerfully, what lessons they learned. Now, my goal is to share that wisdom with you, all those lessons that they had to learn the hard way, in the hopes that our listeners, well, they save valuable time along their journey. Now, my guest today is Ceri Ruenheck. She is the owner of It's Your Call. Welcome, Ceri.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for joining. And maybe you could just start, Ceri, by telling our listeners in a sentence or two. I love that name, It's Your Call. Just tell us a little bit about what you do in your business.
Well, It's Your Call is a business-to-business outbound telemarketing service, and we work with small companies to help make the necessary unliked phone calls that nobody likes to do. So we'll do the cold calling, we'll do the lead qualification, we do follow-up calls on trade show leads and seminar or webinar event promotion, customer outreach. Just when people have a large amount of calling and they don't have the time or the resources to do it themselves, that's when they hire us.
Yeah. Or as you say, all that sales process, not everybody likes to do that. I hear that so often from startups. So that's such a
Yeah.
valuable service. What was your inspiration, Ceri, for starting that business?
Oh, let's see. So I was on maternity leave with my first son, and one of my ex-bosses was consulting to a company, and she said, they need to start an inside sales group. Why don't you take over the gig? And so I talked with my husband, new kid, what were we going to do with daycare, blah, blah, blah. And so I took on the gig, and after about 7 months, it was winding down. I had successfully put together a program, and I was like, how do I find companies that are thinking about starting inside sales groups? And I'm not that smart. So I just realized that there must be a lot of small businesses that don't have the infrastructure to actually have an inside sales group. So I just went to a trade show, and anybody that had one of those goldfish bowls out, I'd say, who's going to follow up on those leads? And I got my second customer and just continued on after that.
Good for you. Pretty spunky, pretty spunky. I love that.
Well, yeah, well, I pretty much cut the cord behind me with the I had to find something, I had a baby and a mortgage and I got to find
Abs-
work though.
Absolutely. And it provided that flexibility. I love it. I love it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
And so I'm sure obviously that was a while ago when you had your hands full, it sounds like, with a lot on your plate at that point in your life. Is there one particular mistake or misstep that stands out in your mind that was particularly costly?
I would say so we grew and I ended up having to hire people to help do the calling, and we were doing really well. And then so, somebody would go, "Oh, I know somebody who does calling." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And I just plug them right in, and it cost me a really large customer because I didn't train the person, because I just made the assumption, oh, they know how to make the calls and everything like that. And then when I started, like when the customer started pushing back and going, well, these really weren't qualified leads. And then I finally reached out to not finally, but I reached out to the person who was doing the calling, and she was like, oh, well, I always just suggest, why don't I send you information? And it was a mess. It was a mess. And I ended up having to cut back significantly on what I was charging. I was like, look, I got to cover at least what I'm paying the people to do your calls, but I didn't make anything out of it, and it was really demoralizing. It was just kind of like, oh, I trusted these people, this person, and the person who made the referral, and it just didn't work out. And it was really, I mean, flat out, it was my problem. I didn't do any training. I just made the assumption, and we all know you never assume. So,
I've heard that
and it certainly
expression.
made an ass out of me.
That is the expression. Absolutely. So as a
Yes, yes.
result of that, and boy, I'm really glad you mentioned that one because people really put so much trust, right, into that hire, especially when that referral comes from somebody. That person probably thought they were doing you a favor, of course. So what's the lesson that you took away from that? How did you change, I guess, your business going forward as a result of that?
So even now, I make it a standard procedure that for 40 hours, the initial 40 hours, the person is being trained, and they're being trained by doing cold calling for It's Your Call. So they're reaching out. I'm doing hand holding as far as, I mean, the folks who are calling are all sophisticated senior level people. So I'm not teaching them how to make cold calls and how to talk on the phone.
Right.
However, I mean, I am teaching them what the process is, and we're reviewing the calls the following day and saying, look, instead of suggesting, how about qualifying, and find out if they are really interested, and then maybe they want to see some information or maybe they want an appointment, but you can't just, you know, I mean, after doing this for several years, several, for an eternity,
Close enough.
for
We'll
a
round it.
long time. I've learned you can talk
Yes.
almost anybody, or not anybody, but you can talk people into setting an
Sure.
appointment, even if they don't want to, and that's why
Sure.
it's that's an interesting point about, like, because there's companies out there that will do only charge for appointments. You'll get
Right.
appointments, and then yeah, I hear so many stories about pushback where the customer says, "No, this wasn't a qualified appointment. The guy didn't even know I was coming." And it's just, when you're getting compensated for an appointment automatically, the customer is going, "How good of an appointment is this? Is it worth the
Right.
X amount of dollars that I paid?" And stuff like that. So anyway, I diverse.
Exactly. No, that's an excellent point though, because there's the learning about the training and how to change that screening process, but there's also just great lesson in what you say about that ongoing quality of control, because you can't micromanage, but you need as the owner that assurance that the output that they're generating is as good as you would generate, because that's your name going on that after all, right?
That's absolutely right. And I always say, I'd rather nickel a customer 5 times than dime them once.
Now, I've never heard that one. That one I'll
Yeah,
write down.
well, I coined that one. Get it?
Sure, but yeah, those decisions to actually hire. Now, I've heard so many startups struggle with even having the confidence to hire, right? And in fact, I heard for a sales role, much like what we're describing, I even heard one startup the other day say they've incorporated as part of their interviewing process, they have to listen in on how somebody's making those calls, and
Mm.
so it's part of, like, if you were hiring somebody for presentation skills, then you have to present to me. So if I'm hiring you for calls, I want to see you in action first. Have you done that? Any thoughts on that process?
What we do is role playing. There's laws as far as recording. That's why we all get this call might be recorded, so it covers the basis everywhere. But some states you can record it and you don't have to tell anybody. Other states, both people have to be informed. Sometimes it's the place inside. What I usually will resort to is role playing. And if we're doing if they say, "Oh, I've got this really hot lead, and here it is, Carrie, and they want to buy 85 billion hours of calling," and it's like, "Oh, okay, let's what did they say?" And then
Yes.
and how did it go? And what did you say when they said, "Well, maybe we'll be looking at it in July," and so it's not exactly role playing, but there are times where I'll go, "Well, I probably would have said it this way," and then you're going to get
Nice.
more information out of them or something like
Yeah,
that. So yeah,
for
it's a little
sure.
role play.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a proven technique, obviously, in sales training. So that's some leading practices that you're incorporating. If you had to sort of hazard to guess, what would you say that cost you in terms of time, that mistake?
Oh my God. Years. No, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean,
It's
I lost a customer, so that means to
yes,
replace that customer, that's like 3 or 4 months of sales cycle.
absolutely.
Um, I lost the at least half. I covered my payroll with it, so that was, but I didn't get anything out of it. So there's all those hours. Plus, I had to find a new person to step in. So
Yeah.
there's, you know, that's and in today's way of hiring people, I'm sorry, these online things, I just don't dig them. They are.
For sure.
Because they do the matching for you. So even
Yes.
the prospect, the candidate doesn't know who you are. So, you know,
Yes.
and then you set up times to meet and they don't show up. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, thanks
for
for another 20 minutes of my life that I've lost, you know. So anyway,
For
so
sure. It is tough finding top talent for sure. And you're right, technology is supposed to be making that easier. But nowadays, when just anybody can have ChatGPT produce a resume, I often hear the person that shows up that you're talking to doesn't even sound like the person that's in this resume. So it
yeah.
makes it, I'm hearing longer and longer cycles in the door, not only like 3 to 4 months, it's now closer to 5 or 6 months even, by the time you actually find that right person and go through all of that. So it can really vary, right?
Yeah, I've resorted almost primarily to doing networking, just talking to people and saying,
Yeah.
"I'm looking for somebody. I'm looking for somebody." And it's like it's not even hi that my name's Ceri Ruenheck with It's Your Call. It's hi, I'm looking for somebody. You know, I just
Yes.
start the conversations that way because I mean, yes, I
Good
got
for
that
you.
bad caller from a referral, but that was my
Yes.
bad because I didn't do the right training. But now, you know, I bring
Yeah.
people on and now I've got that box checked. So I am covered as far as training and I can get referrals and that's how I do it. I don't like doing those on the online things.
No.
Been there, done that, close the door.
Absolutely. And I often hear that from startups. It's almost like they're surprised that they have to do the training. They almost expect that if they're hiring somebody seasoned, but if you want it done the way you would do it, then you have to be prepared to make that investment in developing their skills, right?
That's absolutely right. I mean, that was my mistake. I thought I made the assumption, as we said earlier, you know, that this
Yes.
person would know everything. I'd be able to just, here it is, throw it at you. And it turned out, no, nope,
Yeah.
nope, not at all.
The
So,
things we had to learn the hard way for sure. And the other day when we were chatting, you also shared another little misstep. I thought it was a great one actually, Carrie, because I've heard
because
it
I
from.
still do it though. That's the
I know.
problem.
Well, we
But
all
for
still
shorter amount of times. How's
do
that?
it. Okay, all right, perfect. So we still do, and I shamelessly share my mistakes as well that I still you'd think because I coach people on it, which is even worse. But I still go out and make these same mistakes again, which just shows how tough it is to be an entrepreneur and that we absolutely are all human. But I'd love for you to share it because it is such a common mistake that I so often hear, having come from the consulting world where it was so important that we delivered the service and at the same time kept our eye on keeping that pipeline full, having to manage sales and delivery as a consultant, whether you're an entrepreneur and employee, that has always been tricky. So that
Yeah.
mistake that you shared the other day, if you're comfortable sharing that, I think that would be just huge value
Yeah.
for our listeners.
Yeah, it's resting on my laurels, thinking that I am just so good. I have everything in place and it's going to stay that way forever. And so I just, I, um, I, you know, when things are going good, I slack and I tell customers all the time, you got to be consistent. You got to keep it going regular all the time. And, you know, things are going good. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to go to those networking events every week, you know, and oh, I cut back on this and oh, and uh, you know, it's shorter and shorter amounts of time where I'm in that headspace of oh, life is good, where I really should realize life is never good. I mean, it's good, but you know,
It's good today, but 6 months later, when
yes,
these projects dry up, then
exactly.
absolutely yes.
You've got to keep
And
your eye. I feel like I'm a walking cliche, an eye on the prize. You know, it's like you just have to keep the far things and not live. Don't live in the moment. That's
For
Speaking
sure.
of the universe, we were talking about the universe earlier. Oh, live in the moment. No,
At the moment,
don't.
no, you have to live
Maybe
in
in
the
your
moment.
personal life, not in your business life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as the owner, you always need on to keep your eye on the future ball as well, right? So you've got enough
Yeah.
to juggle, and just kudos to you for finding talent and delegating down what you can, so that frees you up to be hopefully doing that. But you know what? We all make that mistake, Carrie. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. We all do that because it's a fine balance. Sometimes we don't know how long these projects are even going to last, so it's hard to anticipate, right? Is my pipeline full enough? This is not a science, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. Especially since we're working with the smaller businesses, things happen all the time. And where somebody pulls out for me where I thought they were going to be going for another 3 or 4 months, and one of their big customers pulls out from them, and their cash flow is, cash is king. So, and
Exactly
what's the
right.
first thing to go? Sales and marketing, first thing to go. Anybody can do that. Yeah.
So they'll be back, in other words, when they learn their tough
Yeah,
lesson.
they should be, but still, but that pulls the roll out. Oh, stop being so cliche. It just throws you for a loop, and if I'm saying, oh, everything's great, and then all of a sudden they back out, I'm like, oh, I don't have anybody in my pipeline.
For sure, absolutely. So that's the implication of that. And what would you say that that costs you when that happens? Just so that we've got a sense of time, because it making it real, we all do it, right? And
Mhm.
so it helps make it a little bit more real if we can sort of quantify a little bit how much that sets you back.
So, okay, so if we go with the idea that my sales cycle is a 3 to 4 months, and if I have not been doing a consistent job of thing, that means I'm double timing it now. So I've increased the amount of time that I am looking for people
Right.
100%,
Right.
so 3 or 4 months of that where I was only doing, I don't know, like say 20 hours every week, if it was that much, 10 hours every week, let's be
Right.
honest, 10 hours every week of prospecting. And
Sure.
then now I have to do 20 to make
Yes.
up for that. So now we're talking like 3 or 4 months. So you're talking another so 6 months. There
Six
you go.
months. Yeah, there you go. Just for
Something like
ballparking
that.
figures. Yeah. And other things fall off too, right? Because let's face it, there's other balls that you still have in the air for sure. Well, thank you for
Mm.
sharing that, because I really thought the other day when we were chatting that one really hit home. So I appreciate you sharing that as well. So I've made you talk about two big mistakes. So to balance that, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about one of the wins that really you're most proud of in your business. What comes to
Well,
mind?
well, one big win is that I'm going to hit 31 years this year in doing this calling. Yeah, on
Oh
doing
my
this
gosh,
business. So, yeah,
30
yeah.
years.
So that's kind
Wow.
of a win.
Yeah, that's a
So,
big win, not kinda.
yeah.
But
Well, so there's only two mistakes in 31 years. It's not too bad.
I think that's a pretty good track record. That is
But
amazing. Congratulations. Yeah,
one of my favorite stories is this,
please.
it happened early on. I was just starting out and I got a call from Simplex, Grinnell Simplex now. They do the time clocks and they're local in Massachusetts here. And they pulled my name out of the yellow pages and they called and they said, oh, we'd like for you to do a pilot program. And I was like, nah, you don't want me. I'm a small business. I'm running this out of my home. If you want to, and she's like, no, no, no. We like working with entrepreneurs. I'd like to come and visit your facilities. I'm like, running out of my home, telling her no, no, no all the time. And she's like, no, it's fine. We want you to just do this pilot program. So, I wrote up a proposal for her and I jacked my prices up because it's a huge company and not that much, but I did jack them. And she called me up and we set up a time for her to meet. And at the time I was pregnant with my second son. So like dropped my first kid off at daycare. I'm like, the house is a mess, but knew I could I was still on the schedule for making calls, so I was making phone calls. I did stop at Dunkin' Donuts on the way home, picked up coffee and donuts, got my calling done, ran the vacuum really quickly. I'm wearing sweatshirt and sweatpants and grub and the door rings. she's a half hour early. And she got in
Oh,
and she looks like Natalie Wood, which some people probably don't know, but she's gorgeous, absolutely
yeah,
stunning. Everything's in place. And
put
she's like,
together.
I'm early. And I said, yes, you are. I said, you have got to realize I know how to dress professionally, and my house has seen better days. So she comes in, we're chatting, and she's asking me all these questions, really ambiguous. What would constitute a hot lead? When would you turn over a hot lead? And of course, all I'm saying is it's whatever you say. It's your call, it's what you want. That's when we do it. And the
Sure.
next thing I know, the cat walks in and he's covered with mud and grass. And he's like meowing. And this is a cat that never shows up. And he's meowing. He sits down next to her. She's about to reach down and pet him. And she's like, you could see her go, because it was so gross. And then he throws up all over the place.
Oh, oh my goodness.
She
Oh, I can't
threw
even
up all
imagine.
over the place. And that this time I said, look, I got to clean this mess up. So she just kind of shuffles her papers, puts them away. And then we chatted on for about a whole bunch of other things. And she left. And I didn't even think about asking her when she was going to make a decision. I was just,
Yes.
I called her back. I called up anyway after a week and I said, just wondering where things stand. And she called me back within an hour, which in the previous times she has never called. Call me back within an hour. She said, Ceri, I highly recommended you to the VP of Sales and Marketing. And I didn't tell him anything about the cat puke. So we did
I'm
the program and we ended up finding them like $200,000 in sales that they put all in writing for me. So
oh,
that was a success. And that was a fun
oh
story.
Oh my goodness, I love that story. It just hits the point home. This is real life, right?
Yeah,
I mean, when we are running home-based businesses, then life is happening around us. So that's the reality of it. I
yeah.
love that story. Thank you for sharing all of those details, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that is a story and a memory, I'm sure that will stay with you for sure. So how did that impact you? I mean, obviously that's a huge win, right?
Well, it kind of bolstered my confidence. I was like, oh, all right, we can laugh at things and get through them, and people aren't as hard-nosed as you thought. And it was a success. It was a real success. And then I kept my prices at that rate anyway, so that helped too. After
Sure,
I bumped it,
absolutely.
yep, I kept
For
it.
sure, there's a corporate pricing plan for sure, quite different from startups,
Yeah.
absolutely. And certainly you've earned it. Well, I just love your sense of humor and your resilience. It has come out again and again through this interview. It's just been a delight to learn about the business and to laugh with you for sure. Is there any other final advice that you have for startups out there? Because boy, in 31 years, such an accomplishment. Congratulations again on that. That is no small feat, especially in this day and age. So, any final advice?
My key thing is be consistent and don't, like, if you try something and after 2 months it doesn't work, that doesn't mean it's a failure. It means you need to tweak or whatever, and be really consistent and don't rest on your laurels.
For sure. I love that because we're not always going to get it perfect. In fact, don't expect to get it perfect on
Mm,
day one. When you go in with that mindset that what you try, it's not all going to work, but rather than just throwing that baby out, talk about cliches, throwing that baby out, usually it just needs some massaging. So whether that's some wording changes, some timing changes, so tweak first before you abandon the whole strategy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's, I would totally agree with that.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again. It has been an absolute pleasure meeting you. And thank you so much for sharing two of those little missteps and just two huge wins. So, congratulations again. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.